Her trembling hands held the letter that would change everything. "If you're watching this, I've risked everything for a woman society said I should never love." Alexander Chen, once the most powerful man in Asia, now stood before the world stripped of his empire, all for the love of his former maidservant. What would you sacrifice for a love that defied every boundary? Stay until the end to discover the shocking sacrifice that even his billions couldn't protect him from. If this story of forbidden love across social divides touches your heart, please like this video and subscribe to see more tales that challenge what we think we know about love and power. Maya scrubbed the marble floors of the Chen mansion on her hands and knees, her back aching from hours of labor. 6 months into this job, and she still wasn't used to the vastness of the estate, 52 rooms that required constant attention, gardens that stretched beyond what the eye could see, and a man who owned it all but barely acknowledged her existence. Alexander Chen was 34, devastatingly handsome, and worth more than the GDP of several small nations combined. His technology empire had revolutionized artificial intelligence, making him both feared and revered across continents. Maya had only glimpsed him a handful of times, usually as he rushed past with his entourage of assistants and security personnel. Today was different. As she polished the grand staircase, a shadow fell across her work. Looking up, she found herself staring directly into Alexander's piercing dark eyes. For a moment, neither spoke. "You missed a spot," he finally said, pointing to a corner she hadn't reached yet. Maya felt her cheeks burn. "I'm working my way there, sir." Something in her tone made him pause. Most staff cowered before him, but there was a quiet dignity in her response that caught him off guard. He studied her face, the determined set of her jaw, the intelligence behind her eyes. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya Reyes, sir." He nodded once and continued up the stairs, but something had shifted in that brief exchange. Maya didn't know it yet, but Alexander Chen would remember her name. 3 days later, Maya was summoned to the library. Her supervisor looked concerned. "Mr. Chen has asked for you specifically." "Be careful," he fired the last 3 people who entered that room. The library was Alexander's sanctuary, a 2-story marvel of rare books and ancient manuscripts. He stood by the window, silhouetted against the fading light. "You have a degree in literature," he said without turning. It wasn't a question. Maya froze. "How did you?" "I make it my business to know who works for me." Now he turned, his expression unreadable. "Your application said you dropped out after 3 years. Why?" The question was invasive, but Maya saw no point in lying. "My mother got sick. Cancer. The medical bills or tuition, I couldn't afford both." Alexander nodded slowly. "I need someone to organize this section." He gestured to a wall of books. "My previous librarian categorized everything by color. Aesthetically pleasing but utterly useless." Maya couldn't help but smile. "That does seem impractical. Can you do it? I'll pay you double your current salary." And so began Maya's transition from maidservant to personal librarian. The work was demanding but fulfilling. Alexander would often work silently at his desk while she catalogued his collection, occasionally asking her opinion on a rare volume or historical text. Weeks passed. Their conversations grew longer, extending beyond literature to philosophy, art, and eventually, their lives. Maya learned that behind Alexander's cold exterior was a man haunted by expectations, a father who had never shown affection, only demanded perfection, and a mother who had abandoned them both when Alexander was just 7. "Sometimes I think all this," he confessed one evening, gesturing to the mansion around them, "is just my way of proving I'm worth something." Maya looked at him directly. "The size of your house doesn't determine your worth." He laughed bitterly. "Easy to say when you haven't experienced poverty." "I grew up in a 2-room apartment with 6 family members," she replied quietly. "I know exactly what poverty feels like. And I know that the happiest moments of my life had nothing to do with money." Alexander fell silent, studying her with new eyes. For the first time, he saw beyond her role in his household to the woman herself, strong, principled, and unimpressed by his wealth. It was refreshingly disorienting. The change between them was gradual but undeniable. Alexander began finding reasons to be in the library when Maya worked. She noticed how he no longer took business calls when she was present, how his perpetual frown softened when she entered a room. One rainy evening, as thunder rattled the windows, Maya found Alexander staring at a photograph, a young boy beside a stern-faced man. "My father," he explained without prompting. "The day he took me to see our first factory. He told me that sentiment was a luxury we couldn't afford." Maya's hand covered his before she could think better of it. He was wrong. Alexander looked at their joined hands, then at her face. The air between them charged with unspoken feelings. When he leaned forward, Maya knew she should pull away. This was her employer, a man from a different world. Instead, she met him halfway. Their first kiss changed everything. Within weeks, they were inseparable behind closed doors, though to the outside world, Maya remained staff. Alexander's board of directors would never accept a relationship with a former maidservant, and his business rivals would use any perceived weakness against him. "I don't care what they think," Maya insisted during one of their arguments. "But I won't be your secret shame either." Alexander pulled her close. "You could never be my shame. You're the best part of me." For 6 months, they lived in their private paradise. Alexander showed Maya a world she'd never imagined, private concerts in the library, midnight picnics under stars made visible by the mansion's remote location, conversations that lasted until dawn. But Maya showed him something far more valuable: how to open his heart, how to find joy in simple moments, how to love without conditions or expectations. Then came the photograph. A paparazzo captured them embracing on the mansion's balcony. By morning, their relationship was front-page news, with headlines that ranged from romantic to cruel: "Billionaire's Maid affair, Gold Digger strikes jackpot." Alexander's phone rang constantly. His board called an emergency meeting. His publicist drafted statements distancing him from the unfortunate situation. Through it all, Alexander remained silent, watching Maya's face as she read the vicious comments online. "I'll resign," she finally said, voice breaking. "This will ruin you." Alexander took the tablet from her hands and set it aside. "Do you love me?" "You know I do." "Then nothing else matters." The next day, Alexander Chen shocked the world. At a hastily arranged press conference, he appeared holding Maya's hand. "This is the woman I love," he announced to the flashing cameras. "Judge me for my business decisions if you must, but my heart is my own." The fallout was immediate and brutal. The board threatened to remove him. Shareholders panicked. Business partners distanced themselves. Alexander's father, long retired but still influential, publicly disowned him. For weeks, Alexander fought to maintain control of his company while protecting Maya from the media's cruelty. He hired security to guard her family when reporters began harassing them. He filed lawsuits against publications that printed lies about her past. Then came the ultimatum. The board, backed by his father, presented Alexander with a choice: end his relationship with Maya or lose his position as CEO of the company he had built from nothing. That night, Alexander found Maya packing her belongings. "What are you doing?" he asked, heart sinking. "I won't be the reason you lose everything," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Your company is your life's work." Alexander took the suitcase from her hands. "No. You're my life now." He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "Call me yours," he whispered. "That's all I want to be." The next morning, Alexander Chen resigned as CEO of Chen Technologies. He sold his controlling shares, keeping only enough to ensure the company's charitable foundations remained funded. The mansion was put on the market. The fleet of luxury cars disappeared. When reporters asked why he would sacrifice his empire for a former maidservant, Alexander's answer was simple: some things can't be measured in dollars. Some treasures can't be kept in vaults. They moved to a modest house near Maya's family. Alexander used part of his remaining fortune to establish scholarships for students like Maya, brilliant minds forced to abandon their education due to financial hardship. Together, they built a life based not on wealth or status, but on the simple joy of waking up beside the person who saw them for who they truly were. 1 year after the scandal, Maya found Alexander in their small garden, planting tomatoes with the same focus he once applied to corporate takeovers. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "Giving it all up?" Alexander looked up, soil smudging his cheek. The man once known for custom suits and cold efficiency now wore faded jeans and smiled more easily than he frowned. "I didn't give up anything that mattered," he said, rising to take her in his arms. "I was a slave to expectations, to my father's approval, to the endless pursuit of more. Now I'm only a slave to one thing." He kissed her softly. "Your love." Maya smiled against his lips. "Call me yours," she whispered, echoing his words from that pivotal night. "Always," he promised. "In this life and whatever comes after." Years later, when asked about his extraordinary choice, Alexander Chen, once the most powerful businessman in Asia, now known for his philanthropic work and best-selling books on ethical business practices, would say the same thing: "People called me a fool for choosing love over power. But I've never felt more powerful than the day I became brave enough to follow my heart." Their story became legend, the billionaire and the maidservant who rewrote the rules of power and love. It reminded a cynical world that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts but in the courage to recognize what truly matters before it's too late. If this story touched your heart, remember that love that transforms us is the greatest power we'll ever know. Like and subscribe for more stories that remind us what it means to be truly human in a world that often forgets.